Um, they'll be coming around.
Looks like God's children are here. You did a wonderful job getting that in. You did a really good job. Sorry. We're going to go way back in time. In the old-timey days, I'm going to say middle 1800s is when this story occurred. It was a one-room schoolhouse. You're being homeschooled, so you kind of have a one-room schoolhouse and different grades. There was grade 1 through 12 in this little school, and the school teacher was a young teacher. It was maybe her second year teaching. So when the school started, she said to all the children, she said, "Do we need to have some rules? What do you think would be a good rule or a couple rules to have?" And the kids thought, and one child raised his hand and said, "If somebody should hit somebody, they should be spanked 10 times on the back with that stick of yours." Another kid said, "You know, if somebody pulls somebody's hair, that's not good either. Maybe they should get 2 or 3 whacks." So, young man I think he was in the 10th grade. I can't remember for sure, but he was a big boy. He sat in the back of the class, and he raised his hand and he said, "You know, teacher, if somebody were to steal my lunch, I'd like for them to get 10 big old whacks on the back." And the teacher said, "Okay, we'll do that." Anyway, after they made their rules, school went beautifully. All these kids, I mean, they were wonderful. A few months later, some kid goes, Teacher, somebody stole my lunch. It's gone." The teacher looked around. She said, "Did somebody take his lunch?" There was a little boy sitting on the front row. He was in the 1st grade. He had on a coat. It was winter time. And he raised his hand. He said, "I did it. I took his lunch." The teacher said, "Well, you know you're going to have to get 10 whacks on your back." And the little boy said, "Mm-hmm." So the little boy stood up and she said, "Now you've got to take your coat off." He took his coat off, but there was no shirt under there. His mother was washing his only shirt that day. And he was so skinny, you could see his little ribs. And he just stood there kind of all hunched over. And the teacher said, "You're going to turn around." And he turned around, and suddenly in the back of the room, the big boy who had talked earlier raised his hand. He said, "Teacher, teacher." And the teacher said, "Yes, what is it?" He said, "We said 10 whacks on the back, but I'll take his 10 whacks. And we deserve a punishment for all that we do that's wrong. And for some of the things we don't even realize are wrong. And Jesus took our whacks for us. In 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 24, the Bible tells us, "For by Jesus' stripes we are healed." And thank goodness Jesus loves us so very, very much, because we certainly don't deserve his wonderful love. Thank you, honey.
Our scripture this morning, if you want to join me, is in 1 Corinthians 6, verses 19 and 20. First Corinthians 6, 19 and 20. What? Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, which is in you, which ye have of God, and ye are not your own? For ye are bought with a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. Our speaker this morning is Walt Cross. Walt Cross lives in the Smoky Mountains of eastern Tennessee, where he and his family, they serve in their community with a small ministry called the Mustard Seed. It's a health food store, and there they are able to provide lifestyle education, lectures in the public school system, in businesses and churches, and on a one-to-one basis. Walt's formal education was in conventional health care. He was in administration there, and he worked there for 20 years. Walt then accepted an offer to work as the director of an international lifestyle center, where the method of addressing health concerns took much more proactive approach in looking for root causes. He has found this proactive approach to addressing health concerns to be a much more effective way in addressing chronic diseases. Since Walt's transition to lifestyle health, he has earned his doctor of naturopathy. Walt routinely speaks in Adventist churches throughout his home conference of Georgia Cumberland and other conferences around the United States, but he's also spoke in churches in Canada, Burma, Venezuela, Rwanda, and Sweden. I know you received a rich blessing and information from Walt this morning. Walt?
Good morning, y'all. It's good to be back with y'all. It's been a few years, and this is a beautiful church building. Yeah. How many of y'all are originally from this area? Got a couple of us, yes. I was in Brazil a couple weeks ago. Excuse me, could I get some water from somebody? And they told me, I was speaking at a camp meeting there, and they said, most of our speakers, we need one translator from English to Portuguese, but we need two for you. We need one from English to Portuguese, but whatever you speak, we need something from that to English. So they had a little hard time with the Southern. Can anybody tell me what the most important organ in the body is? The heart? The brain? Thank you, sir. Why the brain? Pardon?
It tells the heart what to do.
Tells the heart what to do. Why else?
Keeps everything working.
Keeps everything working. Why else? It's how we communicate with God. It's how we have discernment. It's the quality of the function of the brain. Last Sabbath, I was teaching Sabbath school in Greenville at my home church. And I sat down, and I was right next to a neurologist. And I said, guys, my cognitive processing speed is not working too well today. I said, we had a house fire, and I got just a couple hours sleep last night. And it's true, if our brain is working well, we can communicate well, we can discern well. But if our brain doesn't work too well, it affects how our body runs. Something I think is very important is, see if I can figure out, let's see here. Oh, here we go. Figure out your preparing the brain for battle. What battle are we talking about? Pardon? Spiritual battle? Is there a spiritual battle now? Is there a spiritual battle even worse to come? It is. Daniel 12:1 says, it will be a time as never before. When I go to Rwanda and I speak, I learn more and more about the genocide. 2 weeks ago, I was in Wisconsin. And there's a boy there from Rwanda, and we talked a while. There are people in Rwanda that have no living relative. No siblings, no parents, no children, no cousins, no uncles, no living relative. The conference president, his wife, and 8 children were slaughtered by machete. And as you listen to those stories, as you go to the Genocide Museum, and you hear how brutal it was, the Hutus decided to destroy the Tutsis. And finally, they'd been calling them cockroaches. And finally, the media came out and said, it is now time to kill the cockroaches. And Africa's been warring in tribal wars for many, many years. And this type of thing has happened. And if it had not been President Paul had come back in with an army, they would have wiped out every single Tutsi. That was the goal. And as I look at the brutality of that, and I think, could I handle that? My wife, all my children, just totally killed by a machete. Preparing the brain for battle. And one of the important things is preparation. And preparation, do we do preparation? Did y'all do preparation yesterday? Yes, absolutely. So let's look at preparation. I go into schools and I teach in the fall, I teach structural firefighting or structural fire prevention to the kids every year, kindergarten through 8th grade, sometimes into the high schools. I teach them to cover your face, stop, drop, and roll. I bring our firefighters in so that they know who these people are. It's not just Darth Vader coming to their house. It's, the kids, they look weird. Do they run and hide under the bed, or do they go in the closet, or do they come to us so we can get them out of the house? We have fun with the kids so they can get to know my firefighters. We also, because of Gatlinburg, I now go into the school system in the spring. Here we brought in Tennessee Forest Service, the U.S. Forest Service, and we teach the kids about wildland mitigation and why it's so important to prepare around your homes, preparation to prevent a Gatlinburg from happening to our mountains where we are. Did you know that Smokey Bear is the second major icon in the world? When I went to Brazil, I said, does anybody know Smokey? Oh, yes, they knew who Smokey the Bear was. We do a lot of training. We do a lot of prevention so that we're ready in the event of an incident. We practice. In firefighting, we have a saying. It's don't practice until you get it right. Practice until you can't get it wrong, because human life depends on you. Is this the time to pull out the Jaws of Life manual and say, how do you use this thing? Not at all. We need to know exactly how to get out there and use that Halamatra tool or that Hirsch tool so that we can get in there quick. And we have to wear several hats. It's not just the fire hat we have to wear. We have to be able to wear several hats because I live up the mountains. I-40 runs through us. Yesterday I was talking to the superintendent and I said, what's the timeline? And he said, Walt, he said, we're probably looking, if we're lucky, 29, maybe even 30, 31 before I-40's plumb back open again. And we have a lot of wrecks on I-40. And so as we get out and we see a vehicle like this that's not on fire, do we say, well, we'll just wait on rescue squad to get there? No. I mean, it can take 45 minutes to an hour sometimes to get other services out to get to us. And so, no, we've got to put on our rescue hat and get the jaws and tear that open. And then do we say, well, we'll just wait on the ambulance? No, we've got to put on our EMS hat and be able to get in there and take care of the medical issues on that person because it may take EMS a while. There's times it's in EMS today, it's not uncommon to be at level 0. I had a call not long ago. Our county was at level 0, Sevier County was at level 0, Jefferson County was at level 0, Hamlin County was at level 0, and Haywood County, which is across the state line, they had one ambulance and it was an hour away. And so we've got to be able to figure out what to do. We put him in somebody's car and we drove him down to the Welcome Center and brought in UT helicopter and we flew him out. We have to be able to do what has to be done and we must be prepared. This is a car wreck we had on the interstate not long ago. We had to rip it apart. Rescues this past Wednesday morning. Our first call was at 5-something in the morning. Got to a house, a mobile home, and the water was about this far from the top of the window. And so we broke the windows out. We brought a man, a lady, 2 large dogs out, put them in the boat, brought them to shore. Less than an hour later, that mobile home was totally underwater. That's the volume of water we had this last Wednesday morning in Bobby and Parrotsville. This morning, my crews are out there right now. We already have roads that in the same area where Helene hit back a year and a half ago that we're already having flooding in our area. This is during Helene here, but our team had to practice. They had to be ready. This is our Swiftwater team, and you know they're ready to go. When Helene came, they rescued over 200 people out of the water. In the helicopter, they rescued over near 30-some people. We had some members get in a helicopter and do some rescues. You've got to be ready. You can't just wait. You got to be ready. Structure fires. Got to be ready. Prepare, practice, practice. How to prepare the brain for battle. Are there things that we can do to prepare the brain for battle? There is. Absolutely there is. The first thing we look at is fuel. What fuel are we putting in the brain? Does that make a difference? The fuel that we put in the brain? Sure does, yeah. How about this car here? You think they are worried about the fuel that goes in that car? Car's $8.5 million. They'd probably be a little careful. How about this car? It's the most expensive Bugatti. It's only $19 million. Can you imagine? Insane. Do they care about the fuel that goes in that car? Yes. Or how about this car? The S-Class Cabriolet. Let's see what the owner's manual says. Note, damage caused by wrong fuel. Even small amounts of the wrong fuel could result in damage to the fuel system, the engine, and the emission control system. Never refuel using diesel, more than 10% ethanol, more than 3% methanol, additives containing metal. If you accidentally refuel with the wrong fuel, do not turn the engine on. Call Mercedes, they'll come get the vehicle, they'll take it, and they will drain the tank. And we had that happen one time. I was down in Collegedale when I first started firefighting, and this was probably 81 when this happened. We came in from a fire one morning, back from a house fire. It was back on the tailboard days. I was riding left back tailboard, and I remember coming in. The driver, he's tired, and he gets out, and he starts putting the wrong fuel in the truck. Fortunately, he turned the engine off and realized what he had done. And, we didn't have any destruction of the engine or the fuel system or whatever. But we had to have the mechanic come in and drain the tank and then put good fuel in it. But this is interesting. Even small amounts of the wrong fuel could result in damage to the fuel system and the engine. The repair costs are high. Are the repair costs high when we put the wrong fuel in the body? Let's say if you put a Twinkie in. You now have Twinkie blood. And then when you have Twinkie blood, you'll have a Twinkie brain. Can the repair cost be high? Absolutely. Can it damage the system? It can, and we'll talk about it here. And I'm going to look at some things from Harvard today and from Mayo Clinic and look at how we can take care of the brain so that we can prepare the brain for battle. The brain is the organ and instrument of the mind and controls the whole body. In order for the other parts of the system to be healthy, the brain must be healthy. In order for the brain to be healthy, the blood must be pure. If by correct habits of eating and drinking, the blood is kept pure, the brain will be properly nourished. And it's physiology here. Before you treat the body, you've got to make sure the brain is working well. Does the brain affect the other parts of the body? Absolutely it does. But how do you make sure that the brain is healthy? The blood must be pure. It must not be contaminated. I had a surgeon tell me many years ago, he said, Walt, if you want to correct a problem in the body, you've got to identify the organ or the system, and then you have to stop putting anything in that organ or system that's causing problems. And then you have to provide that organ and system what it needs to run well. So we've got to have good blood going to the brain so that the brain will work well. It's the fuel to the brain, just like in the car. But how do we make sure it's good fuel? It's what we eat and what we drink. Yes, there's other things, hormones and toxins and things, but what we eat and what we drink are huge. And God talks about it here in 1 Corinthians 10:31. It could have just said, whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. And that would be totally conclusive. Would you agree? But God loves us. And He gives us little hints like, watch what you eat and what you drink. It's kind of like that fourth commandment. He said, remember, some folks are going to forget it. Remember. And here He's saying, whether therefore you eat or drink, or whatever you do all to the glory of God. Do the food and the drinks that we drink, is it do glory to God? A question we must ask ourselves. I'm reading from Harvard here. Think about it. Your brain is always on. It takes care of your thoughts and movements, your breathing, your heartbeats, your senses. It works 24/7, even while you're asleep. This means your brain requires a constant supply of fuel. That fuel comes from the food you eat. And what's in that fuel makes all the difference. Put simply, what you eat directly affects the structure and function of your brain and ultimately your mood. Like an expensive car, Harvard says, your brain functions best when it gets only premium fuel. We had a guy that lived in our county, and he went and bought a car from, I'm trying to think, Hellcat. Who makes Hellcats? Is that Dodge? And he gets him a Hellcat, and he had it chipped out, and it was as fast as they could make it off the floor. 800 and some horsepower. First gas tank, 2 point something miles to the gallon, according to the computer. It hadn't even broke in yet. It's not fast enough. At 300 miles, he calls a little fella down in Randleman, North Carolina. More accurate, Level Cross. Who lives in Level Cross, North Carolina that knows about cars? I'll give you a tip. He wears a cowboy hat. Mr. Petty. He calls Richard Petty. Mr. Petty, can you make my car go faster? See, anything that Mr. Petty works on for Dodge, it's still under Dodge warranty. Sure. So he sends it to Level Cross, and it comes back with 2 fuel pumps, each 3/4 of an inch in diameter. Took first gear out because it just squalled its tires in first gear. It had right at 1,500 horsepower. Mr. Petty said, you can no longer go to a gas station anymore. You have to go to the airport to get your fuel. You have to have 115 octane. If you go to the gas station, it will destroy your engine. He said, you now have a race car. I believe the body which God has given us is more important than that Hellcat, than that Bugatti, than that Rolls Royce. And God has told us certain fuels are best for our body. Do you think Mr. Petty knows what fuel needs to go in that car? Absolutely. Well, God knows what fuels needs to go in our bodies. And Harvard's identifying it here. Eating high quality foods that contain lots of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants nourishes the brain and protects it from oxidative stress. The waste, free radicals produced when the body uses oxygen, which can damage cells. Unfortunately, like in an expensive car, Harvard continues, your brain can be damaged if you ingest anything other than premium fuel. If substances from low premium fuel, such as what you get from processed or refined foods, that Twinkie, gets in the brain, this is amazing right here. It has little ability to get rid of them. So when I go to Rwanda, Rwandans love donuts. I mean, you would think they're all policemen. They love donuts. And you eat a donut, the brain has a hard time getting rid of the waste, according to Harvard here. Diets high in refined sugars, for example, are harmful to the brain. In addition to worsening your body's regulation of insulin, they also promote inflammation and oxidative stress. Multiple studies have found a correlation between a diet high in refined sugars and impaired brain function. Do we have impaired brain function based on the food that we eat? Even a worsening of symptoms of mood disorders such as depression. What are we looking at here this morning? Preparing the brain for battle. So important. Anybody ever ridden a steam train? Well, if you go to Dollywood, it's no longer a steam train. It's now runs by, instead of coal, it runs off of other fuel. But what if you put toilet paper in there? Would it run good? No. I was flying out to speak in South Dakota, and I was flying with a gentleman. He's the superintendent of the strip mines in that region and of coal. And he was telling me on the plane, he says, our coal is not what you put in a train because it's not, the BTUs are not hot enough. He said, you need coal from Kentucky, from West Virginia, from Tennessee. He said, that coal has good BTUs, and that will run a steam train. So it's not just coal, it's got to be high BTU coal. The same is true for us. The next item Harvard looks at is physical activity. Psychology Today reports neuroscientists around the globe agree that physical activity is the best medication. Would you take that medication? Physical activity? To maintain brain health throughout one's lifespan. Exercise improves structure, function, and connectivity of your brain. Around probably 12 years ago, the World Health Organization came out and And it said that every physician in the world should prescribe this medication, and if so, it would save approximately 4 million lives a year. I believe it would save more. And that medication was exercise, that the WHO said that every physician should prescribe every patient. Exercise improves the structure, function, and connectivity of your brain. Dr. Walter Kempner at Duke University, a genius guy, came from Germany. He looked at little humans and he looked at big humans. And he found that little humans exercised 4 times a day. They had recess in the morning, PE in the morning, recess in the afternoon, and then they went home, played, and had chores. Remember that? I go in schools today that don't have any recess. Just 2 weeks ago, the College of Pediatrics came out and said that we need to have our children having recess in school. And yes, it's the impact on the heart, on the bones, the muscles, but here's a new one that the pediatrician said: kids do not interact with other children. And through recess in PE, there's interaction. What are they doing? They're doing this all the time. They can't even look you in the eye because they're not used to looking people in the eye. The transient effect of exercise on cognition includes improvement in most executive functions: attention, working memory, cognitive flexibility, inhibitory control, problem solving, and decision making. Do we need to have good problem solving, preparing the brain for battle? We do. And information processing speed for a period of up to 2 hours after exercising. So Kempner at Duke University, he asked his adult patients to exercise 4 times a day. Significantly improved cardiovascular, diabetes, cognitive function. So if you exercise 4 times a day, how many hours a day did we just improve the processing speed? 8 hours. That's not bad. And the side effects aren't really bad either. Going back to the steam train, adequate hydration. It's amazing how many people I have tell me, when I ask them how much water they drink, they'll tell me, I don't do water. I don't have this anymore. When I first moved back to Tennessee 22 years ago, it was not uncommon for the older gentleman to say, can I count my moonshine? I don't hear that anymore. They've all died off. Water is so important. I'll have a person come in and they'll say, I do a lot of water. Well, I don't accept that anymore. How much do you do? Oh, a lot. How much? A lady came in just yesterday. She says, I do probably around a bottle and a half. University of California at Davis says it takes 4 bottles, 64 ounces, a half a gallon of water to run a 5-year-old's brain, to just sit on the couch. Our brain depend on proper hydration to function optimally. Brain cells require a delicate balance between water and various elements to operate. And when you lose too much water, that balance is disrupted. Your brain cells lose efficiency. Years of research have found that when we are parched, we have more difficulty keeping our attention focused. Is that important in the trials? It is. Satan is a magician. He's doing this over here while he's doing this over here. Is he trying to get our attention over here while he's getting us here? He is. We've got to have good attention to know when we're being tempted. Dehydration can impair short-term memory function and the recall of long-term memory. Do we need to be able to remember Bible verses? We do. if we're dehydrated, we just can't, according to Psychology Today, it can affect our ability to pull up that Bible verse. Have you ever said, where did I put the keys? You ever done that? Or, what's her name? We do that. It could be we're dehydrated. Severe or prolonged dehydration may cause serious cognitive impairment, delirium, permanent brain damage, or even death, according to Mayo Clinic. I have a guy on my fire department, used to be, he's left now. He's gotten older. He didn't drink. In all the years that he was on the department, I only saw him sip on a bottle of water one time. He says, I don't do water. He said, didn't you know it rusts pipes? I don't want to rust my pipes. All he ever drank the rest of the time was Pepsis because he didn't want to rust his pipes. Batman Jotty. Anybody heard of Batman Jotty? Your mini cries for water. If you want to learn about dehydration or the effects on water on the body, he's probably the best guy out there I've ever read. Every function inside of the body is regulated by and depends on water. Water must be available to carry vital elements, oxygen, hormones, and chemical messengers to all parts of the body. When I took nutrition from Cornell taught us that water is the train car that carries the nutrients throughout the body. If you're dehydrated, you don't have adequate train cars to carry those nutrients. And it said, especially here, without sufficient water to wet all parts equally, some more remote, distal parts of the body will not receive the vital elements that water supplies. Do we drink enough water? And it's not just, if a 5-year-old, it takes a half a gallon to run them to sit on the couch, and if they're more active, they need more than, up to 128 pounds. So let's say you get a young gal or a gal that's in her, that's in the 120, 125. So she needs, again, the half a gallon to sit on the couch, but if she's active, she needs more than. But those of us that are over the 128 pounds, it's body weight divided by 2, that many ounces of water a day. Body weight divided by 2, that many ounces of water a day to sit on the couch. If we're more active, we need more. The state of Tennessee tells me to drink a gallon of water a day in the event that I may have a house fire, and that's the Tennessee Fire Academy. And then in rehab, I'm drinking more. But it's not just the volume of water you're drinking a day, it's how much are you drinking at a time. See, there's a guy, he was friends with Einstein. He was another PhD physicist that was a genius, and he found that if you drink more than 2 to 3 ounces of water at a given time, it goes into what's called free flow. So let's see, how much is in this guy? Is it 8 ounces? Yep, 8 ounces. Is that easy to drink all at one time? Yeah, that'd be easy, just chug that down. Well, you can only count 2 to 3 ounces, even though I just drank the whole thing, because I'm only absorbing only 2 to 3 ounces. 5 to 6 ounces is going to free flow, according to this physicist. And so what he says you should take sips of water about 4 different times every half hour. Except, he said, 15 minutes before you eat, while you eat, 1 hour after you eat. Have you ever heard that before? We have. And he said it's kind of like pouring a 5-gallon bucket on a tomato plant. It's going to run off. Versus a drip line, and it's going to soak in. Sunlight. Vitamin D boosts cognitive acceleration. In a study led by scientists at the University of Manchester in England, they looked at vitamin D levels and cognitive performance in more than 3,100 men aged 40 to 79 in 8 different countries across Europe. The data showed that those people with lower vitamin D levels exhibited slower cognitive processing speed. Do we need fast processing speed? Cognitive processing speed. We do. We've got to be able to discern, temptations. But it's not just about us. What is our mission? What's our mission? Pardon? Pardon? Spread the gospel. Yes. Point the sin-sick soul to Christ. Are we all sin-sick souls? Yeah, we are. We're to point people to Christ, to spread the gospel. if your brain is having slow processing speed, could you miss somebody? I had this guy come in one time. A little over a year ago, I had an appointment to go out to Phoenix, Arizona. There's several others. Ben Carson was speaking. I was speaking. Charlie Kirk was speaking. Peter McCulloch was speaking. I was getting ready to leave, and this guy walks in, and he says, "Can you help me?" Well, I'm getting ready to catch a flight out of Knoxville, and one of my biggest challenges is being late to an airplane. I'd rather sit out there for 2 hours. I've got to catch an airplane tomorrow morning at 7:30 to go to Alaska. And I will be there early. You know, I'll leave way early because I know how interstate wrecks can be, and it holds people up, and I'll just go there early and just sit there at the airport for a couple hours just to make sure I make that airplane. Guy comes in, and he's talking, and he was ex-Special Forces. And he's having some issues with his heart. And so I'm talking to him, and I said, "It's okay. You're going to get a new heart." And he goes, "How am I getting a new heart?" And I said, "When you get to heaven." He started crying. This ex-Special Forces guy started crying. Career Special Forces guy. I said, "Why are you crying?" He said, "I can't go to heaven." "Why can't you go to heaven?" He said, "My preacher told me I can't go to heaven." He said, "My mama told me I can't go to heaven." I said, "Why?" He said, "The stuff I did, I can't go to heaven, they told me." So I started I said, "You ever get a woman pregnant and cover up, kill her husband?" "No." And so I told him about David. And so I said, "Have you ever just gone and killed a mess of people because they didn't believe like you? On your own?" "No." And I told him about Saul that turned into Paul. See, if you don't have good cognitive processing speed, and you say, "Well, you know, I'm late for this airplane. I got to go," and you're not thinking too good, are you able to stop and have those discussions? No. Vitamin D deficiencies increase brain degenerative process. Vitamin D deficiencies increase brain degenerative processes. A study published in the Archives of Internal Medicine showed that those who are classified as deficient in vitamin D were 42% more likely to have cognitive impairment. Meanwhile, those classified as severely deficient were 394% more likely to have cognitive impairment. It is not how much vitamin D you take a day. It is not the color of your skin. It is not how much time you spend outside. It is what your blood level of vitamin D is. Because I had a lady who was Caucasian. She took 5,000 IUs a day. She worked in landscaping, and her vitamin D blood level was 12. We upped it to 10,000 IUs a day for 3 months. It went to 17. We upped it to 40,000 a day for 3 months. It went to 24. So I called my buddy, a surgeon up in D.C. that we used to work together. Does a lot of vitamin D. He left general surgery and he now does lifestyle medicine. And I said, "What do you think?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "We got to do some searching." A week later, he calls me and he says, "You see what just came out today about magnesium and vitamin D?" I did. I said, "I did." He says, "Give your girl," he said, "bowel tolerance." I said, "Yes." So she went to bowel tolerance. On magnesium, her vitamin D shot up to 97. It's because she was deficient. See, if you don't have enough magnesium, even though you're taking adequate vitamin D, you can't absorb it properly. If your boron is low, the same thing. Or if your let's say she has a 97 and her vitamin A is too high, then it's still not going to work right. So it's not just how much vitamin D you take a day. It's what is that blood level, and you got to look at a few more things. Serotonin deficiency symptoms: poor memory, low mood, difficulty sleeping, low self-esteem, anxiety, aggression. What's our mission? Pass the word, share the word. That's what God's told us in the Great Commission. If you're mean as a striped snake, does someone else want your God? No, not at all. You can't have aggression. We've got to be kind and gentle. Making the right decisions, temperance. I used to think it was just, I don't do alcohol, I don't do drugs, I do tobacco, I'm good. Is it more than that on making right decisions? Could it be the music we listen to? Is there bad music that actually subliminally could affect people? Or just the words that are blatantly out there could affect people? How about TV? Could TV affect people? Their brain function, their spirituality? How about gaming? I was flying from Atlanta out west one time, and this guy was on his little Mac computer. He's in his mid-40s, and he was bouncing in his seat like a little 8-year-old playing the video game. All the way from Atlanta out west, and he was killing people, stabbing them, shooting them, blowing them up, cutting their throats. And he was bouncing in his seat. And let's say next time someone cuts him off driving, could he get that mixed up in reality? Not to mention the time you waste in gaming. I had this guy come in back several months ago, and he walks in, and immediately you see there's a problem. I grew up on a farm, and my daddy and my granddaddy, my great-granddaddy, they taught me to look at cows' eyes. Anybody have cows? Ever had cows? You look at their eyes, you look at their head, how their head's holding, you look at their gait. Guy walks in, boom, he's got problems. I could see it in his eyes. And he says, "Can you help me with my eyes?" Anybody ever seen welders burn eyes? That's what it looked like. I said, "Have you been welded?" And he said, "No." I said, "It doesn't look like infection. It looks like you've been welded." "No. It just doesn't look like infection. It looks like something else. What have you been doing?" He goes, "Well, I have to be honest with you." "Yes?" "I hadn't slept in 4 days." "What's wrong?" He says, "Well, I'm going after $1 million. He says, "I've won every tournament gaming thing online. So far, I am the top one." He says, "I have one more to win. And if I do, I go to Vegas and I go for the world championship." He said, "Can you help me with my eyes?" His eyes were terrible. Gaming. We learn in when people who game, they're more prone to be sick. They don't eat right. They're more prone to drink, to smoke, to get have sleep deprivation. It's a challenge. How about social media? Is that a problem? Did you see what Sally's husband got her for their anniversary? You don't get me anything like that. Did you see where Judy's husband took her on their vacation? We don't get to go to places like that. And it's probably not even true. It's terrible. I mean, there is a place for social media, but there's big problems in social media. So we need to have temperance, making the right decision. As we grow and develop, very special chemical reactions activate and deactivate parts of our genome at strategic times and in specific locations, essentially turning our genes on and off. Epigenetics is the study of these processes and the factors that influence them. You know, we're told genetic predisposition. That is probably one of the most misdiagnosed diagnoses. I've had doctors argue with me till the cows come home that if your granddaddy smokes and he gets lung cancer, your daddy smokes and he gets lung cancer, and you smoke and you get lung cancer, that is genetics. You can ask a kindergartner and they'll say, "Mister, that's because you smoke." It's just horse sense, y'all. If you eat if your wife cooks food like her mama cooked, like your mama cooked, and your grandma cooked, and you know, and folks just don't have much into exercise, and my cholesterol was 288. And the guys at work, this is before I left regular health care, and the guys at work said, oh, well, you got to take statins, you're genetically predisposed, just look at your daddy, look at your granddaddy. And I didn't want to take statins. If you work there, you know the problems with it. And so I thought, well, let's see here. If you're hypertensive, you go on a no added salt diet. I didn't know any of this stuff yet, but just horse sense. And I said, so if I go on a no added salt diet for blood pressure, what if I go on a no added cholesterol diet for high cholesterol? So I quit eating cholesterol. My cholesterol went to 104. What we learned was I was not genetically predisposed, I was East Tennessee predisposed. Do we have a diet that could raise cholesterol? Oh yeah. And so epigenetics, it's really like the story of salvation. If you change your ways, your genes can change. And as I listen to these professors from MIT and these highfalutin universities studying epigenetics, they're talking about what we're talking about this morning. These basic laws of health. We're talking about how it changes the brain. They talk about how it changes the genes in our body. I don't think that vehicle's going to run too good. Stopped up air filter. Adequate oxygen. Do you breathe like a chihuahua? Or do you have good diaphragmatic breathing? Remember our babies, when they breathe, their stomachs went up and down? I remember when I took voice at Georgia Cumberland Academy, Elder Crook literally took us when we joined the choir, the Camerata. He would put a songbook on our stomach out in front of everybody that first day and watch us breathe. And stomachs didn't go up and down. Our chest went up and down. He said, go back to the dorm, put your book on your stomach, and learn how to breathe where your stomach goes up and down. That's diaphragmatic breathing, where you're getting more oxygen in, getting more waste out. Don't breathe like a chihuahua. Effects of air pollution on the brain. Children's psychological and motor development is negatively affected. Negatively impacts brain white matter, which affects nerve conduction speed. Brain inflammation. We're fortunate that we live here in East Tennessee. Though we do have, as the winds come in, it hits the mountains and it falls, but we're not in LA, you know. I was listening to the folks that just went to China in Air Force One speaking about it, and they were talking about how polluted it was. I was flying out towards where y'all out, Washington, and there's a guy sitting behind me talking. He was from China, and he kept saying, "It's so clear, I can see the ground. I can see the ground," and we were way up, and the lady says, "What are you talking about?" He says, "I'm from China. You can't see the ground. It's so polluted." Pollution, we're blessed. We don't have that huge issue. Negatively affects executive functions such as planning and memory. Cognitive impairment, increased behavioral problems, crime rate increases. Rest. This is a tough one. There's several things on rest. Are we getting the hours needed? The Breezel-Belloc study said less than 8 hours of sleep, you die quicker. More than 9 hours of sleep, you die quicker. That's a 15-year study of 6,950 some people. We know that the hours of sleep before midnight are worth twice the hours of sleep after midnight. When we were in school, on the wall, excuse me, in anatomy and physiology, we had charts of the bones and the muscles and the nerves and the vascular system in the lymphatic system. In the lymphatic system, the brain was white. They didn't think that the brain had a lymphatic system. In 2013, Harvard published the brain does have a lymphatic system. It's called the glymphatic system. And Harvard said from 9 o'clock at night to 10 o'clock, the brain does a deep cleaning. From 10 o'clock to midnight, it does a thorough cleaning. If you ain't asleep, it's not getting thoroughly cleaned. We also know that we need contiguous sleep. We need to get into REM sleep. And many people are woke up numerous times a night. Prostate, 5, 6, 7 times. Hip problems, wake up, and then you're worrying about the kids and the grandkids, ladies. Yes? It's true. And we need that contiguous sleep, so we get into that REM sleep, so our brains, we need sleep. When does the day start? At what time? Pardon? At sundown. Where do we know that? Genesis 1 and 2. That's right. So what is the first lifestyle item that God has us to do? What is the first one that happens? Sleep. Yeah, rest, sleep. It prepares our body for the next day. I did not bring my cell phone up here, but let's pretend this is my cell phone. And I say, well, it's getting low. I'll charge it tonight so it'll work the rest of the day. Is that how it works? No, I charged it last night so that it can work today, so I could find how to get here. We have to sleep in preparation for the next day to prepare our bodies. A sleepy person's brain works harder and accomplishes less. I'm reading from University of California, San Diego. A single night of poor sleep is linked to less efficient filtering. Do we need to be able to filter in order to prepare the brain for battle? Is this a great time for Satan to come and give you a temptation when you're tired? Last Sabbath morning at Sabbath school, when I was teaching Sabbath school class, I was teaching for Dr. Matthews. He was out of town. I had to really, really, really work hard to keep my brain going to teach class. Why? I'd only had a couple hours of sleep because we'd had a house fire that night. Someone's home burnt. And I started not to go. Let the guys, I'm the chief, I'll just let the guys go. And then the radio said, the lady's still inside. No, I need to go. We need to get her out of that house so she doesn't burn up. And so I didn't have good sleep. And I had to really work hard, so that I kept that brain going. It's a perfect time for Satan to tempt us. A single night of poor sleep is linked to less efficient filtering, meaning one's brain has issues picking out important or relevant nuggets of information from all the insignificant junk one's senses absorb. When I was out last year I had dinner with Ben Carson, we were talking, and Carson says that any of your 5 senses, if they've ever experienced something, you will always remember it, unless that part of the brain is destroyed, damaged in some type of an incident. I had a lady walk in 2 weeks ago, maybe just a week ago, and I was getting her something, and I noticed her fingernails. Boom. Back from 1971, a classmate of mine had a set of clackers that color. Remember the clackers that we used to use? I haven't seen that color since 1971. I saw her fingernails. Boom, my brain remembered it. Had I thought about those clackers all those years? No. But it came back. Carson says you have to be careful. What you see, what you smell, what you touch, what you taste, any of your 5 senses. If you expose them, he said, it's there. Is there stuff out there we should not be absorbing? Yes, there is. There are times when I go in on a EMS call to support EMS, and if they beat me there, and something's really bad in there, I don't go in. I don't need, there's no need. They're there. I'm there to get there in case they're not able to get there fast enough. This brain has so much stuff that's just really bad that I've stuck in little closets and whatever and locked the doors, and I don't want to remember. You see bad stuff out there in fire and EMS and rescue. I don't need to stick no more in there that I don't have to. If we don't have good sleep, we don't have that ability to say, I need to be doing something else. There's a conversation. Some folks are sitting over there and they're gossiping. You got two choices. You can go and help change the subject, or you can say, guys, I got something I need to do. I need to do something else because I don't need to be hearing that. You know what I'm talking about? Your brain needs to be awake and alert to be able to do that kind of thing. Mayo Clinic finds the following on sleep and brain function. Getting at least 7 hours of quality rest each night is essential for optimal health. Mayo's still saying 8. Harvard, they're saying 7.5, but they're flirting with 7.5. Sleep provides the foundation for all daily habits and what? Important for preparing the brain for battle? Absolutely it is. Preparing the brain for the battle that we're dealing with now, but preparing the brain for the battle to come that Daniel says will be a time as never before. Sleep deprivation can negatively affect mood and temperament, as well as one's ability to focus on daily tasks. Lack of sleep influences what and how much one eats. In God we trust. Can anybody tell me the venue here? Where do you think the venue is? Where is that? That used to be illegal in that location. A school. That's right, it's a schoolhouse. Yeah. When Tennessee K through 12 public students be in classes next month, the national motto, "In God We Trust," will be required to be posted somewhere in their schools. And I go into various schools, and there's one school that's closest to me that I go to the most. When you walk into the office, boom, right in front of you is this sign, "In God We Trust." That's it. And then you turn to the side and you walk to see the secretary. When I used to go to that school, or any of the schools, when I first started teaching lifestyle health, I would have to take, when I talk about this subject, I'd have to take the money out of my pocket and ask the kids to take the money out of their pockets and say, what does the money say? I couldn't say it. But they could read it and say, "In God We Trust." And I'd say, well, what you just read is huge on how well your body's run. Trusting. I couldn't even say trusting God. I just had. But then when this law came, I can now say it. It's amazing. We live in the Bible Belt. That's huge, y'all. I go all over. And I go to LA, I go to Chicago, and they just don't get that like we get, like our grandmas and our mamas taught us. But the teachers, they're very glad that we can now talk about "In God We Trust" in the classroom. It's on our bills. It's on our coins. It's on our police cars. I was in Wisconsin 2 weeks ago. I asked them if it was on their police cars. They said, no way. It's on my fire trucks. This is one of my fire trucks. I asked them if it was on their fire trucks. They said, no way. Prayer will give the sick an abiding confidence. And many times, if their cases are borne to the great physician in humble trust, it will do more for them than all the drugs that can be administered. You believe that? I believe it. And said, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and will do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon them, which I have brought upon the Egyptians. For I am the Lord that, what? Drugs don't heal. Herbs don't heal. Exercise don't heal. God heals. When people come and see me, I say, don't forget the most important part. Prayer. Pray and ask God to bless it. That's where the healing comes from, is from God. Trust in the Lord with all thy heart, and lean not into thine own understanding. So often today we try to do our own way, but we've got to trust God. We've looked at 8 laws of health. We'll look at more this afternoon. But these 8 laws of health, when you apply them, it's just physiology. It's how the body runs. Several years ago, I was speaking to a couple. They had come in from Knoxville. They were retiring. Both of them worked in healthcare. The wife went to the restroom. The husband was sitting there. And my son had done a poster for me that had these laws that we just talked about up on the wall. And he's looking at them. The fellow's he's like 65 years old. And he goes, that's the key. I said, what are you talking about? He said, those items, that is the key to health. I said, I don't know, tell me, explain. He said, I worked in healthcare my whole career, but those 8 things there in those pictures, and it had a picture of nutrition and a picture of trusting, those 8 things, he said, that's the key to health. And I said, yes, sir, you're right. We have challenges now. And we need these laws of health to be able to deal with them. But y'all, there's going to be times coming that we've never seen. And unless we prepare, as my guys have prepared for this last Wednesday morning, when we had to pull that couple and their 2 dogs out of that trailer that was... We had another call at that same time. And we triaged it. The other one was not as severe. If we had gone to that other one first and then gone to this one, the water would have been above their trailer and they would have died. But those guys have practiced, they've trained, and they're ready to go. We have to practice and train for those times now and those times soon to come.
Please open your hymnal to 431, Over Yonder. Please stand.
Toil, grief, nor care in the homeland bright.
Our dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we're so busy on that rat wheel, and we're so busy for this and with that. Lord, help us to stop and take the time to take care of our bodies, to follow these basic laws of health, that our brains can be strong, that we can discern the issues at hand now in those tough times to come. Give us that desire. Give us that willpower. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
We have a lunch ready for everyone, and at 2 o'clock we will start the other talks. The first one will be how to develop an effectual lifestyle. The next one will be how to address stress naturally. Now, I know none of us have stress, right? And the keys to health. So I hope you'll join us for a great lunch and the meetings afterwards. Thanks.